Well, this proposal was, Turkey was trying to kind of put different model on the table than the model that it thinks that the U.S. has, which is to work with the SDF to take the Raqqa. The talks in the U.S. and Washington's, well, once the Raqqa is taken, then the stabilization politics will be conducted by the Arab component of the SDF. I think Turkey will not have much problem with the Arab component of the SDF, but Turkey is very much concerned about the PYD component of the SDF, which is the YPG, which is the backbone of the SDF. So this proposal of bringing like these Arab tribes as a counter proposal to what US has seems it hasn't gained a lot of traction in the US, and therefore Turkey is not very happy with how the progress has been done vis-a-vis the Raqqa operation, because the US, the picture that Turkey gets, the US is adamant to work with the SDF and is not paying attention to Turkey's concerns regarding the PYD. So at this stage, I think Turkey feels that it has less and less leverage vis-a-vis the US and limited option when it comes to influence the US decision on how to take the Raqqa and afterward how to stabilize it. Well, Turkey doesn't. Turkey previously used to have a Syria policy, a whole Syria, which was, it had a say on the southern Syria, on the northern Syria, on Damascus area. But more and more, as the nature of the crisis has evolved in Syria, as most of the Turkey's previous allies, from the US to some of the European countries and the Gulf countries, has lessened their commitment to the bigger Syrian policy and the picture, and particularly to the idea of the regime change, Turkey also has adapted its foreign policy to this new reality. It downsized its ambitions in Syria, and it downsized the geographical space of its foreign policy in Syria. Now, previously Turkey had a Syria policy, but now Turkey have a northern Syrian policy. Actually, Turkey's regional policy extends from northern Syria to northern Iraq. And the issue that is grappling with the most in this area is the PKK-PYD. And the countries that it is grappling with here is Iran, because Turkey feels that Iran is getting quite significant influence in the countries that is surrounding it, both in Iraq and Syria. Turkey tried to curtail it. And the third one is to lessen the negative security externalities of this crisis on Syria, particularly along its border. This is more or less what the Turkey's Syria policy is. In fact, it is Turkey's northern Syria policy. Well, Turkey's growing relation with Turkey's improvement of relation with Russia should not be exaggerated. I wouldn't say this a dramatic improvement. There is some kind of compartmentalized transactional relations that is taking place, but nevertheless, the trouble between Turkish-Russian relations are still there. They still have very different strategic view of the crisis in Syria and what should be the end game in Syria as well too. And actually not only in Syria, they have very different stance on many other issues in the Middle East, in Balkans, in Central Asia. So therefore, I don't think that the Turkish-Russian relation can ever be a substitute for Turkish-American relation. And actually, one of the reasons that Turkey has improved its relation with Russia, Turkey tried to establish relation with Russia, was as a result of Turkey's exasperation with the US on Syria particularly. And I know that there is unhappiness in US with Turkey as well too, but there is very significant unhappiness within Turkey vis-a-vis the US too. Turkey feels that the US does not take into account its interests when formulating its foreign policy towards Syria. It has progressively reduced the Syrian crisis to that of war on terror, and it's not taking into account the nation's security challenges that it is facing. But I would not, despite all this trouble between Turkey and the U.S., despite all this trouble between Turkey and U.S. relation, the Russia is not a strategic partner, is not even an ally in Syria. I think the Astana process that was initiated by Turkey and Russia is reflective of the Russian agenda, not that of Turkish agenda. Turkey went along with the Astana process with the hope that this process will provide some breathing space and time for the opposition. But nevertheless, the Astana process is a Russian-led, is a Russian framed agenda, and it served the Russian agenda very well. Russia had this international PR opportunity, depicting itself not only a decisive partner in the war, but also a peacemaker in the Syrian crisis. And Russia tried to design the political process, but also design the opposition's composition as well too. It brought the issue of constitution before the issue of the political transition. All of these were against the Turkey's declared goals. So in this regard, Turkish-Russian relations, yes, it is better now than it was a year ago, but I think the fact that Russia came immediately to the aid of YPG when there was the Turkish threat that after the Al-Bab, Turkey will turn its firepower on the YPG. The fact that Russia cut a deal with regime, brought the regime to Manbij, and also brought some of its soldiers to Manbij, and then to the Afrin, shows that despite the public appearances, either one party or both parties are not happy with the state of relation between the two countries.